Hey guys, welcome back. So for our next speaker, he needs very little introduction for a lot of people in the Berlin startup scene in marketing and podcast aficionados. So this is Philipp Gloeckler. He's from the Doppelganger Tech Talk podcast, and he's going to be giving a talk on a different view on success. Is your startup a venture case? Because his certainly isn't. So welcoming to the stage, Philipp. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hello, Berlin. Hello, Pip. Let's talk and see if this works. Actually doesn't. Oh, it does. Perfect. So hi, I'm Philipp. I founded a company about more than a decade ago, avocado store, online marketplace for sustainable products, and we started with some angel investments, invested most of it in products, built a marketplace, a software which wasn't available at that time, and went on from this, built it step by step, and it wasn't really a venture case due to various reasons. First of all, nobody really talked about sustainability back then. Second of all, and probably most important, I was very young and inexperienced. And third, the cap table was screwed up from day one. Then after that, I did some experience with startups and landed at corporate venture from Daimler. We had a lot of money. We didn't achieve market fit, and I was happy enough to, or product market fit, and I was happy enough to leave just at the peak of corporate startup. But that time really showed me how much money goes into various products with big teams, and no really changing or life-changing products are built. Then the past 2 years, I was lucky enough to do a podcast with Pip, my doppelganger co-host. Thank you. Whoever wants to listen to us at 5 o'clock in German can do, and hear him roast my talk today. And in that time with Doppelganger, when we started, I thought the market for podcast advertising would be very efficient. So you had agencies over there, you had players where you could just book advertisements. You hear a lot of big brands doing podcast ads wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. But I found out whenever I talked to stakeholders, it wasn't really that. There was still a lot of email communication, word sheets, Excel sheets, and it wasn't very as efficient as I thought it should. And also at the time, back then, 2010, 2011, as a young entrepreneur, I was always told you should be like those guys, be like Groupon, be like Fab. Probably today or last year, everybody told you be like Gorillas or whoever. Groupon back then was the biggest company, the startup that went a unicorn the fastest ever. They raised 1.8 billion with, I think, eight rounds, now worth less than 300 million. But then back then, VCs were so happy that they got onto that cap table that when they send you an email, their footers had phone number, email, and then we invested in Groupon, the fastest growing startup. And the other example for us was always Fab. It was a design store which was a little bit close to nice eco products. And they'd made a roller coaster from zero to a unicorn and back within 2 years and sold for 50 million. Looking back, I always envied those guys. We copied their products a little bit. We had the daily deal on our website that a lot of e-commerce stores had back then. We copied the email login or email list that Fab did. And I thought that would be success. Raise a lot of capital, do a lot of money, tell everybody about the vision, about the community you're building, and really change the world. So what do VCs want? Is Uwe in here? I copied this from his slide back in 2019. I'm not sure. I don't think it was on there today. So they want a great team. I think that's mostly an excuse. Of course, you need a great team to build a product or a company, but look at a lot of companies now where the founding team isn't really there. For me, doing some research on the talk, I thought that Facebook probably had a good team in the beginning. On their first presentation, when they raised their $500,000 back in 2004, I think, they didn't even have a team side. I think our team is great. My co-founder is building the product. I do sales and these talks. And so on team, we should do all right. The other thing is product. Build a 10x product. Everybody wants to do this. I think it's possible, especially in the market. On the business model, for the moment, we might be a little bit low. We only take 5% commission rate. Pip is always teasing me with that. But remember that product, what was it called, that sold for 20 billion last week to Adobe? Figma? Yeah, they had no business model at the beginning. So they started for free in the first, I think, 5 years. So it's all right. We built something later. Timing, this time I might be better than with Avocado Store. Doppelganger was a good timing. Lollipop should be a good timing as well because the market is pretty large. It's the International Bureau for Advertising, or Advertising Bureau, said that the advertising market on podcasts alone this year will be a 2 billion business, and in 2 years, 4 billion. So 3x growth should be possible this year, or year by year. Defensibility, I hope Pip will continue the podcast with me, so we're defensible on that with the Doppelganger podcast. And of course, Lollipop is a great brand. Cap table was screwed up back then. This time 50-50 with my co-founder should be all right. And fund returner, of course. Invest now and we give you $1 billion later. So the obvious would be build an MVP, do a C round, build a team, build a product. And that was also the plan 6 months ago. So 6 months ago, we built an MVP with Shopify. I did my presentation, and we started to talk to the first investors. But it all felt not that great. If you look at VCs, they want their fund returners, they want the big bets, and we want to build a product step by step. And also on the marketplace, we need to build, I'm not sure if it's a community, but business relationships with all the podcasts, with all the brands, with all the agencies. And that takes time. And I believe you can't blitzscale product market fit in the corporate venture or corporate startup. I always saw that it wasn't possible. Also, if you see a lot of the startups that grew in the past years, the product was always defined. When they got a lot of money in the beginning, take Gorillas, for instance, the product wasn't really it was a standard product. It was a service that was so mind-blowing. And I also think you can't blitzscale trust. So maybe venture isn't the best for us. Plus, global recession, everybody needs to plan for the worst. The VCs are now suddenly talking about efficient growth. I'm not sure what that is. I'm also not sure what healthy growth is, but hypergrowth is not the best word for the moment. So maybe now is the best time to build something step by step and live from the money you earn. So when we started Avocado Store, we were one of the first companies in Hamburg that started just on AWS and built with Ruby on Rails. And if you look back now, AWS changed the game forever. It helped to, they changed the pricing. They also enabled companies to be way more flexible, way faster. You were able to ship something way, way faster. Plus, of course, the iPhone and the App Store changed the game forever. So a lot of our favorite brands now wouldn't be there if it wouldn't be for AWS or for the iPhone. And that's what we also see now. So when we started, we built the product with Shopify, Klaviyo, and some other apps, the MVP. And we said, okay, we need now maybe 500,000 to build the proper product we want. And my co-founder was researching how to build the products. I was writing the presentation and talking to podcasters, advertisers. And suddenly he approached me and said, stop, we don't need the money. He said he can build the product by himself. And before, we always said, okay, we need at least 2 or 3 developers to do this. And that's actually the shift that we are seeing now. So my co-founder, for the past 3 months, was doing nothing else than using those products to build a product that 6 months ago we thought we need investors for to build. And that's, for me, the biggest shift I've seen since iPhone or since AWS. So suddenly, you can build products as a product. Of course, you need some knowledge in product development, but you don't need the developer to do the first step. And that will change. Of course, there's arguments saying, okay, let's see how a no-code developer can fix a bug, or at some point you won't be able to scale. But you will be able to do 1 or 10 or 40 million revenue with those tools without hiring one developer. And the other obvious, AI will change your job and your company forever. I was very surprised at Uwe when he said in his early talk this morning that he looked at the internet for some garbage and the sun. I thought he asked the AI, but it seems like he's still living in 2021 and not 22. So now we have the tools where we can just look for a VC in a vest who's listening to a podcast and throwing around money while in an oil painting. Still not the best paintings, but it will change everything. And I think if you start a company now, you need to keep this in mind, and you need to play around with those tools to be as efficient as possible, as automated as possible, and not just hire 10 interns to get a job done on an Excel sheet. So beyond the obvious for us is to stay independent, to automate everything we want, or everything we can, and to be number 1 in 2 things. One is building product on no-code with all those tools that are starting now, or were developed the past 5 years. Use them as much as possible, see where the boundaries are, and the second, be the best in podcast advertising. So that's it. Our website, that's the old one. Forget about this. Today we're releasing ads.lollipod.de, and this is the marketplace the other way around. You know how you can buy ads on Facebook, on Google, where you can put in your budget. On there, you put in your brand, you put in your budget, you can say what CPM you want to pay and in what category you want to do ads, and then we do the matching, and the podcast can apply to you and your brand. So we're changing around how the podcast advertising works for the moment. Beta access is open today now. Don't check it too hard or too much on your iPhone because it's not mobile optimized yet, but it works, and it's all built by one guy in his basement for the past 3 months. So success for us looks more like Mr. Beast and less like Adam Newman. Do something, try to be the best in one thing, and then start hiring once it's taking off. He started his first hiring after he totally understood how YouTube worked, and grew ever since, and changed the game from there. Thank you very much. QR code just for you.
Thanks so much, Philipp. I think Yeah, we've all got some building to do this evening to start our new companies, but looking forward to it. All right, so after we've crashed also Philipp's website, which I think will be a fun exercise for everyone, we can also go into some questions. Philipp, being a podcaster, is very happy to answer the most awkward, the most difficult questions that you have. I'm also looking forward to his conversation later with Uwe about how no-code and DALL-E are his world-changing inventions. We'll maybe see that argument later at the party afterwards. But I wanted to kick off the questions with earlier you showed Groupon and Fab as your the heroes at the time when you started out that everyone was looking at. Who do you think the heroes are for 2022?
Heroes with high valuations and then bottom valuation at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Well, Klarna was a topic. I think they're the biggest loser for this year. I'm still waiting on my fast delivery bet that we made at the beginning of the year. I think SaaS will be the loser next year. And this year is everything that's customer facing. And especially, I mean, we will talk about the exit or the, what is it, going private now of Home 2024. I think everything that's on e-commerce and furniture is going to be very hard affected, especially now when interest rates are rising. People don't buy apartments or houses anymore and don't have 20, 50,000 on the side to buy furniture.
Reasonable. All right, guys, we're going to grab a mic. We're going to hand it around for anyone that has questions. If you want to just chuck your hand up, if you have a question that you'd like to ask Philipp, as crushing, as burning a question as you can, then chuck your hands up and we'll bring you a mic. Okay, front row. Do we have the microphone? Okay, thanks, Romy. You want to go? You're going to run? Okay, perfect.
Thanks so much for the talk. So you don't take guests on the podcast, but hypothetically, which would be your favorite guest to have?
Well, we start taking guests now on Twitch for top list. I was approached on Wednesday by a listener to ask an expert for changing or living more sustainable, and the author of the book that it will work out with the climate change, for instance. To have somebody in there and dive deeper into that topic would be fun. And then just entrepreneurs and politicians who are interesting. The best thing would be with people we don't normally have the same opinion with. So to really have a debate. But yeah, I think there's endless of good content. Yeah, maybe not on our channel.
Thank you.
Okay, next question, kind of mid-back. Do we want to run? How are we going to... Okay. Thank you, Romy. You're my hero. All right. Do you want to say your first name and where you work maybe as well?
Yeah, hi, Daniel from Trödelspende, your online second-hand marketplace for the good cause. I have a question, so...
Okay, maybe I should have said, but no sales pitches for the next ones of you.
Yeah, no worries. When you don't focus your resources now on the development of the product, where's the shift to? Where do you put your resources now into and why?
Well, we shift my co-founder is doing the products. I do sales. And what we don't do is to talk to anybody who could give us money. So the biggest shift is no presentation for VCs, angel investors, no talks with them, and rather try to make revenue, talk to brands and podcasters. And the biggest shift is that we're now with just two guys with a little support on sales. And beforehand, all the companies that we built, the majority of the time went into one product guy or girl briefing designer plus 3 to 5 developers. And that suddenly completely disappears. So now we have one person who's building everything himself with a designer who's working on Figma, of course. And it enables us to be way leaner, and we calculated that we about now would have spent maybe 300,000 euros on everything we built in the past 3 months. So the biggest change for us is we're saving a lot of money and a lot of hustle to talk to developers, plus a lot of time to hire them, and it's for us a big impact and big change.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right, Philipp, I'd have a follow-up question to that one. So obviously you're working with a lean team, and you're avoiding some of those costs and some of those time things. Where do you think your first hires will come? Where do you think the roles are going to be important? Sales.
90% sales.
Okay. Well, I guess you got to see Raoul's talk, so good prep.
I listened to the Word podcast last week, but yeah, I think that's now it will all go into sales.
Okay. Nice. So, any of the salespeople in the room, prep your CVs. Next question from anyone? Okay, cool.
Hi, Philipp. Also Philipp from IDNOW, no sales pitch. You said you don't need VCs for the money, but all the VCs here are claiming they are providing so much value beyond money. Are you lacking that, and how are you compensating that? Do you have external advisors, or is it just money in the end?
I have to talk to my co-host twice a week, so that's all the consulting I get. No, but honestly, I think that also changes. So I think with no code and if Series A changes because teams can build stuff for free, it will also change the dynamic on two sides. One is the developer, and especially the head of engineering. That role will change. And the other thing, I think VCs should also change, because suddenly you don't need that much support in the beginning, and they don't get that easy into Series A's or seed investments. And if VCs don't get into seed investments anymore, you could argue that they're not really VCs but private equity firms, and they just compete on price. So I think the model that we've seen the past years might not be the one that is the one for the future. So it is more like enabling maybe smaller teams to build stuff, and then give them enough money to then do the hyper growth once everything is set.
I think, Philipp, we could have gone with a second title for your talk, which was The Ugly Truth About VC Part 2. You're stealing Uwe's limelight, but it's very interesting. We have time for a few more questions. Do we have someone that wants to ask the next one? Okay, top back.
Okay, thank you for the talk, Alberto. Looking for a job? That's a sales pitch. You mentioned the potential of low code, that we can automate everything. Do you think there are industries that can't be solved this way? Like, you are talking about products that, yes, can be built with low code, but what about rebuilding a whole supply chain, for example, or solving the climate crisis in some sense?
Yes, and probably no code is not the best way to build a bank. But that's not the business I'm in, and the business where like most of the VCs we know are investing in, unfortunately. I think you can build products. I mean, question is, how much can you gain if you fully automate or improve all the communications in a supply chain? For instance, do you need to call your truck driver to go somewhere, or does he know where to go and everything is optimized? But yeah, I think with no code, like, we're just building websites in colorful images and try to sell something on it. Uwe said we need to finally build something really good. I was thinking about that in the train. I'm not sure if what we are building is good. It might be good in the sense that we try to get some of the marketing money that goes into Google and Facebook and give it to creators. But yeah, we're not solving the big topics that we're having for the moment.
Cool. I guess Google stopped saying "don't be evil," so I guess if you're taking money from them, it's not too bad. But they are in the audience, so we won't throw too much shade. Do we have more questions from anyone? Up at the back.
Yes. Hi, Tino from Berlin Startup School. Thanks so much for the insights. I have two questions. Your co-host is a business angel himself. What was the feedback that he was giving you in the first place about the idea? And what is your personal goal or goals before you start collecting the first investments? Or what do you believe is important as the next steps until you then will approach business angels again?
I think the feedback was on the podcast and it was quite nice. I'm not sure. He probably gives a feedback next in the next episode as well, maybe at 5. For me, the goal is to stay independent as long as possible. I like the idea of, and I also think I'm probably a better guy for doing my own stuff and trying to be independent. It's at least the most fulfilling with the podcast, that we can do whatever we want and we don't have anybody, just us two and Janos the Off, who's trying to cut us two together. And with Lollipop, it's the same, and it's with a similar co-founder who's very good in product and very good in marketing, and just go step by step.
Cool, thanks. All right, do we have another question? Okay, we got one on the front left.
Lage der Nation did also create a new company for advertising. And what do you think are your main competitors in the next 2 years? Is it more Spotify or will be more small companies?
Both. I think they started more or less at the same time. There was also a VC-backed, or at least angel-backed German competitor that started 2 or 3 years ago and sold just a couple of months ago. And yeah, Spotify is having a product. There's also others that are having a product. I think the product is not super well, or the products are all good, but sometimes I'm surprised how much is still manual work. And it will be an open competition, and then it will go again on creativity and fastness. And I think being lean in a small team might have advantages to do it. Plus, we don't need to think as global as a lot of those players, at least not as the big ones. So that might be an opportunity to have more contacts into, for instance, all the German podcast scene and everything. And it doesn't need to be too global. Plus, if you compare Spotify with us, Spotify is doing a lot of, or we're focusing on host read, which is a big difference, and Spotify is more of a radio ads. Plus, the market is still growing so much that for the moment it's an inventory problem. So it could just be the market. If you think about that, the market is going to double in the next 2 years. There's probably enough space for everybody.
Cool. By the way, guys, just because we will run out of time in a bit, and I'm sure there will be even more questions. Philipp, if you're lucky, we'll go to the speaker lounge afterwards in case you want to grill him there. So in case you didn't have enough time now, then maybe that's an opportunity. But do we have maybe one more question here at the front? Romy, you're really going to have hit your steps for today, aiming for that 20,000.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. I love the aspect of staying independent, and I get why this is more the case when you have business angels compared to VC money. But there's also those and those angels. So how do you select, how do you grasp an angel up front when you need to talk to thousands of angels before getting their investments, and you can only spend a little amount of time talking to them, obviously?
First, I would look if they have a TV show, and then... no, it's a good question. I think, for me, I mean, I'm at least in and out of the scene for 10 years, so I think I could name maybe 20 or 30 people I would like to have on my cap table. If you're really young, talk to, and you don't have the network yet, talk to all of them. but also talk to the startups they invested in. Because I think VCs and angels, they always tell you a lot about all the great stuff they can do for you. At the end, you want their money and they want you to 10x, 100x their money. So it's an easy transaction. And I also think that mostly, or sometimes with young founders, they believe, especially when you look at those TV shows, they always go there and be like, I have a small business, and you, with your knowledge and with your network, you can help me now to grow, to 10x my company. I think that's not true. They won't help you too much. They will be there if it works good, and if it works bad, it's like a bad investment you did on your stock app, and you just try not to think about it or sell it as fast as possible. So they won't help you too much. But do your research, talk especially to the companies they invested in, and see. And then once you talk, you see that maybe also, especially talk to the founders where it didn't work out, because that's mostly where the truth comes out, and then you see if they were really helpful.
Cool. Well, thank all of you for all of your great questions. It was really awesome. And Philipp, thank you so much. And everyone, stick around. We'll have more talks. Thanks so much, Philipp.